Nearly 60 countries have either cancelled or drastically scaled back their plans for building coal-fired power plants since the Paris Agreement in 2015. That agreement has certainly had an effect, and we can't discount the fact that, this is partly politics, but more of an effect has come from one big thing, and that is actually money. That is actually the cost of energy. Because ultimately, that's what generally defines what happens. Not always, but usually, how much does it cost to build one type of power supply versus another? And since 2015, over the past 10 years, the price of solar and batteries has dropped by more than 90%. Hello, my friends. Welcome to the channel. I'm Sam Evans. You're watching the Electric Viking. Among those countries making cuts of 98% or more to their coal power pipeline are some of the world's biggest coal users, places including Turkey, Vietnam, and Japan. The data actually shows that 35 nations eliminated coal from their plans entirely over the past decade, including South Korea and Germany. Global coal-fired electricity generation has actually increased since 2015 as more plants that had already been planned actually came online. Except in the past 12 months, coal use has actually begun to decline. The data on plants in pre-construction phases in 2024 shows what GEM calls a dramatic drop in proposals for future coal plants. The number of countries still planning new coal plants has roughly halved to just 33, with the proposed capacity, the maximum electricity output of these proposed plants, dropping by around 67%. China and India, the world's largest coal consumers, have also reduced their planned coal capacity by more than 60% over that same time frame, from a total of 801 gigawatts to only 298. And even more of those projects are likely to be cancelled. Both countries still have a large number of coal projects actually in the pipeline, and together they make up 92% of newly proposed coal capacity globally in 2024. But China, in China things have drastically changed. In fact, approvals for new coal power plants last year fell by 91%. The Paris Agreement in 2015 had major implications for the use of fossil fuels. As the fossil fuel that emits the most carbon dioxide, CO2, when burned, coal has long been viewed by many, including myself, as requiring a rapid phase out. And why wouldn't it? It's much more expensive than alternatives like solar and batteries. The Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change and the International Energy Agency, IEA, both see steep declines in unabated coal use by 2030 as essential to limit global warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius. But coal power capacity, unfortunately, has actually grown. Capacity has grown, but not use. Global capacity hit 2,175 gigawatts in 2024, up 1% from the year before and 13% higher than in 2015, according to GEM's Global Coal Plant Tracker. The growth disguises a collapse in plans for future coal projects. And it also doesn't really reveal what's happened in 2025, which is a 1% decline for the first time in more than 100 years in the use of coal worldwide. GEM's latest analysis charts a decade of developments since the Paris Agreement and the dramatic drop in the number of coal plant proposals. In 2015, coal power capacity in pre-construction, meaning plants that had been announced or reached either the pre-permit or permitted stage, stood at 1,179 gigawatts. By 2024, this had fallen to 355 gigawatts, a 70% drop. This indicates that countries are increasingly turning away from their earlier plans for a continued reliance on coal. In total, 25 nations reduced the size of their proposals over this period, and another 35 countries completely eliminated coal power from their future plans. That's a lot of countries. The chart you're seeing here shows these changes, with China and India shown on a different x-axis due to the scale of their proposals. Now, it's worth pointing out the fact that China has been actually cancelling a lot of these coal power plant proposals. And as I mentioned, that last year, their coal power plant proposals fell by 91%. Renewables are surging in China. The equivalent of 5 nuclear power plants worth of renewable energy is now being installed in China this year. According to GEM, of the coal plants that were either under pre-construction or construction in 2015, 55% were cancelled. A third were completed and the remainder are still under development. Many of the nations that have phased coal out of their electricity plants are either very small or only had modest ambitions for building coal power in the first place. However, the list does include countries like Germany and South Korea. These nations are both in the top 10 of global coal consumers currently, but their governments are committed to significantly reducing, or in Germany's case, and Australia's here where I live, phasing out coal use by the late 2030s. Turkey, Vietnam, and Japan are among the big coal-driven economies that are now approaching having 0 new coal plants in the works. All have around 2% of the plant capacity they had a decade ago. Other major coal consumers have also drastically reduced their coal pipelines. Indonesia, the 5th biggest coal user in the world, has reduced its coal proposals by 90%. And South Africa, the 7th biggest, has cut its plant capacity by 83%. Of the 68 countries that were planning to build new coal plants in 2015, just 9 have increased their plant capacity, which is insane. Around 85% of the planned increase in capacity by these nations is in Russia and its Central Asian neighbors. China and India. China is by far the world's largest coal consumer, with India the second largest. There was 44 gigawatts of coal power added to the global fleet last year. China was responsible for 30 of them, while retiring just 2.5 gigawatts. And India added 5.8 gigawatts while retiring 0.2. Between them, these nations contributed 70% of the global coal plant construction in 2024. Nevertheless, there are drastic signs of change as newly operating coal capacity around the world reached its lowest level in 20 years. China and India have also seen significant drops in their pre-construction coal capacity over the past decade. In 2015, China had 560 gigawatts of coal power in its pipeline, and India 241. Both nations have seen their proposed capacity drop by more than 60% to reach 217 and 81 gigawatts, respectively. While this is an enormous reduction, both nations still have more coal capacity planned now than any other nation did in 2015. China's current 217 gigawatts, if that actually goes ahead, which I think is unlikely, but if it does, is roughly 4 times more than the 57 gigawatts Turkey was planning in 2015, and no longer is. GEM attributes the slowdown in China's new proposals, in fact, they haven't just slowed down, they've almost come to a screeching halt, to the nation's record-breaking solar and wind growth, which saw more electricity generation capacity installed in 2023 and 2024 than the rest of the world combined. As for India, GEM says the notable declines in coal proposals and commissions come after a coal plant investment bubble that went bust in the early 2010s, and investors lost billions of dollars. It notes that India is now encouraging and fast-tracking the development of large coal plants, and the government has cited the need to meet the large nation's growing electricity demand, especially due to the increased need for cooling technologies during heat waves. In the country of 1.4 billion people, people need cooling. But there are other alternatives, and solar is growing rapidly in India as well. As other nations move away from the fossil fuel, coal capacity is likely to become increasingly concentrated in these two nations, China and India. Together, they made up 92% of the 116 gigawatts in newly proposed capacity last year. However, China wants to get off coal. As a result, the government is now basically cancelling many previous coal power plants that were approved. And as I said, last year, coal power plant approvals fell by 91% in the country. If China heads in that direction, then there's only one real holdout left, and that's India. So the world is on track. It's already hit peak coal. That happened last year, and we're going to head downwards now. But can we get there fast enough? As you can see here from the data here, most countries around the world they're done with coal. They're finished with it because solar, wind, and batteries, particularly batteries and solar, are the cheapest form of energy in the world. And they're only becoming cheaper and cheaper. Can the world, get rid of its coal power in time to essentially save the planet? I think we can. I think we're headed in the right direction. But how do you feel about this? Let me know what your thoughts are in the comments.